All right, now the slightly hard part, or slightly tricky part. What if you want to do something more general? Like instead of just, I want to save this matrix to a file, you want to write something fairly elaborate, like a table with header information and a description at the top of what's in this file, just general text output. Well, you do that with our old friend fprintf. And it works exactly the same way as printing to a command line. Just 3 additional steps. One is you have to open the file before you write it. And I need to warn you about this. You only use this, fopen, when you're going to write to a text file with fprintf. You do not use fopen with any of these other methods. Okay, with read matrix, write matrix, save or load, you do not use fopen. That'll happen automatically. Okay, only use fopen if you're going to write to the file using fprintf. All right, so you say fopen, just whatever you want the file to be called. I'm going to call it listofnames.txt. And I put a W, which says I'm going to write to it. This will actually create a new file. You can also put an A here for append, and that will add on to an existing file. Now this returns something. It's just a file ID. It's just a number. But you then use that file ID to write to the file later. All right, so that's the second step. Now when you write to the file with fprintf, you put that file ID as the first argument. Right? Everything else is exactly the same as printing to the command window. You just add this one thing, which is the file ID. All right, so this is going to create a file called listofnames.txt, and it's going to print to that file names of team members, and then go to the next line. Then I'm going to write that string array from before to the file. And I showed 2 ways you can do it. This one that's commented out is with a for loop. You can print one name at a time if you're more comfortable with that. But you actually don't need to do that. You can do it in one line. You just put one format descriptor and a \n. This says print all the elements of name list using that format. All right, so that'll print each name on a separate line. Okay, so these 2 things with the for loop or with one command will do the same thing. And then the third step. Once you're done writing to it, you close the file. Otherwise, you may have trouble when you try to open it in another editor or something. So let me run this. And that created a file in my default directory called list of names, just a text file that has those names in it. All right, so you see it printed names of team members, and then it printed all the names, just like I said to do. All right, so people get unnecessarily hung up on this. It's exactly the same as printing to the command window with just these 3 differences. You have to open the file first, take this file ID and put that as the first argument in your fprintf statements, and then close it when you're done. And if you want to look at what's in that file from within MATLAB, you can use the type command. Type just means like type it in the sense of a typewriter, print it out to the command window. That's all it means. All right, you see, to the command window will come whatever's in that file. All right, any question about that? But you have to get comfortable using fprintf. If you've been using disp up to this point, now you've got to use fprintf if you want to write to a file. All right, so let's do an example where we're going to write a table. This is typically when you would use this, if you have a table that you want to print to a file. It's going to look like this: Engineering 1221 quiz scores, name, quiz 1, quiz 2, quiz 3, the names in the first column, and then the scores. And forget this line. This line is just adding some information to the matrix so I have the right number of numbers in it. That's all. All right, so we open the file and we put a W, which says we're going to write to it. So it's going to create a new file and we're going to write to it. It's going to be called day12examples.txt. We get a file ID, out file, and we make that the first argument of each of our fprintf statements. A very common thing we see, people just forget to put that, and they see all the right stuff being printed to the command window, but it's not going into the file. It doesn't go into the file unless you put the file ID. All right, so it's going to print engineering 1221 quiz scores. Go to the next line. Then we're going to print the column headers. Actually, it's 5 quizzes, not just 3. And then skip a couple of lines. And then we print out the name and then that person's quiz scores. All right, so because we're mixing the name with the scores, there's really no way to do it. Well, no easy way to do it with what we've learned so far without a loop. All right, so we're just going to loop over however many people there are in our list of names, print the person's name, and then print that person's quiz scores. Okay. So remember, each person's quiz scores is one row of the matrix. So we can print that whole row with one command like this. Okay, so this says print out the kth row of the matrix in %I format. And then put in a new line and go to the next person. All right, so you should study this example because it's a good one to show you how to format a table when you're writing to a text file. And here's where we use this thing that we introduced once before. We haven't really used it. Allocating the number of spaces. Okay, to keep things aligned in a table, you want to allocate a fixed number of spaces for each entry. So this says the name field is going to take up 8 spaces. And if the name has fewer letters than that, it's going to pad it with leading blanks. And similarly, each quiz score is going to take up 4 spaces, which means it's going to fill in blanks in between. And then once we're done writing to it, we close it. And then I'm going to type it and we'll see what we got. All right, and that's pretty much what I wanted. Although I could probably do a little more work to make sure things are aligned nicely. Like maybe put in a few more spaces on this first title so it's more centered. Okay, but you just do that by trial and error. You know, try it. If it doesn't look good, adjust it and do it again. All right. Now, one more little technique that you'll use occasionally. So one way to see what the file contents are is with type. You can also use file read. The difference is file read actually reads it in as a character array and stores it. Okay, so this is actually going to store the contents of that file in a character array variable called file contents. All right, so now I have this character array. So if I needed to parse this information somehow, I've now got it as a character array and I can read through it however I want to. Okay, that's right. So the question in the chat, this is a new file. So if I run this multiple times, like I did, I adjusted it and ran it again, it overwrote the previous file. Okay, when you put W here, it's going to make a new file every time. Even if the file already exists, it'll overwrite it. So you have to be a little bit careful about that. All right, now one more, just this is an alternate way of doing the same thing. So here, I wrote the name first, then I wrote that person's scores, and then I put in the new line. You could actually do that all with one fprintf if you know how many scores there are, just by putting in multiple format descriptors here. Okay, so I know there are 5 scores, so I can just put 5% i's after the %s. That way I can write the whole row at once. It's up to you. Either of those will work. If you know how many rows there are, if you know how many columns there are, you can do it this way. If you don't know offhand how many columns there are, this might be better. Right?